So Jay Robbins here again, mortgage loan originator for over 2 decades, over 155-star reviews with a sustainable mortgage practice. And one of the main ingredients that gives me the ability to have a sustainable mortgage practice is time blocking. Now we hear that and that gets thrown around very loosely, right? But it's so important that you understand what it is and then how to implement it. So today we're going to talk about the top 5 ways to be efficient in time blocking, specifically as a mortgage loan originator, whether you're a broker or a lender. So let's get right into it. So let's first talk about the first tip, which is create a daily and weekly schedule. This is very important. What I do is on Sunday nights, I lay out, and you can do this on Friday, you can do this whenever, but if you lay out what your week is going to look like roughly, and it doesn't have to be rigid and like hardcore because flexibility is required. Sometimes we get a phone call or an email that we need to address because we're allowing that phone call or email to come in because we know it's time sensitive. And I'll get into prioritizing in a minute, but ultimately, when we're creating our weekly schedule and our daily schedule, we want to create it with flexibility. So weekly schedule, it's, or you should know when you start your day and when you end your day, when you take your breaks, when you get back to work. If you're going from 9 to 5 with a 60-minute lunch break, that's a burnout schedule. And a lot of people go longer than that, and they're sitting at their desk and their body gets all banged up. And so part of being efficient is scheduling each hour throughout your day. And of that hour, it's when you're creating your weekly schedule, it's what are you allocating on your daily schedule, right? So for example, I start my days from 9 and then I go till 12:30. That's 3.5 hours. And every 45 to 50 minutes, I'm going very intense. And then I'm taking a 10 or 15-minute break. And what I mean by that is get up from the desk, walk away, come back, sit down at 10 o'clock, go another 45 minutes, take a break, come back, sit down at 11 o'clock, and so forth. And in that 45 or 50 minutes, and it just depends on what feels better for you, it's being very clear on what you're working on. And so there's several coaches out there and leaders out there who emphasize this technique called the 90-91, which is for the next 90 days, spend 90 minutes doing one thing. And one of the biggest things that we as mortgage professionals fall into is that we don't spend enough time prospecting, selling, marketing. We spend so much time processing and doing administration that we put aside what keeps the business flowing. And so that's absolute in your daily and weekly schedule, is allocating at least 90 minutes, and it should be 80% of your day, but at least 90 minutes to start the day just prospecting or selling, making phone calls, shooting out text messages with no distractions. So creating a daily and weekly schedule that has flexibility. And what you want to do when you're creating your schedule, what you want to look at, 80% of your day should be marketing or selling when you're writing out your schedule. So if you're on an 8-hour day, that's about roughly 6 hours of your day. So if you can imagine, if you're spending 6 hours of your day just selling and prospecting, you can see why you should be consistent every month with deals coming in. And so the way to do that is to create a schedule for yourself, both during the day and during the week. It's you're your own boss, right? You're not necessarily, someone's not leaning over your shoulder. And so, but if they were, and they said, hey, you got to do this every day, the odds are you do it. But when we come to our own integrity with ourselves, we let so much slide. So creating a daily and weekly schedule is very important. And then sticking to it with pure discipline, but with some flexibility. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is prioritize lead generation and follow-up. So we just talked about this, but it deserves its own targeted tip, right? Which is the prospecting time, right? There is never a shortage of people to call ever. Why? Because you have your social media, you have everyone in your cell phone, you can log on to Zillow and click on realtor in your area, and there are hundreds of realtors that are going to come up. You can go to an attorney website and do the same thing with lawyers, family law, or estate planning attorneys in this particular area. Hundreds will come up. There's never a shortage of people to call and prospect. And then, of course, your internet leads, right? When you have internet leads coming in, that's the best time to do that. And what I like to do is I have separate categories, which in the Boom Digital CRM, there's different categories, which you can title. What I personally do is cold lead, warm lead, hot lead, pre-approval, and then in underwriting and processing. So those are 5 categories of people that I'm calling all the time, allocated in certain times. So you want to prioritize your lead generation and follow-ups. That's number 2. And by the way, side note, our CRM and Boom Digital has an amazing follow-up system, a nurturing system. So you don't have to nurture and follow up by just calling yourself. A lot of it's done for you. The third tip is utilizing a CRM or productivity tools, right? So productivity tools include a digital calendar, setting alarms for yourself. As far as a CRM, you absolutely need to be using a CRM to be able to be successful as a mortgage professional in this environment. There are very robust out there that are robust CRMs that are completely targeted to mortgage professionals. Right here at Boom Digital, by being a part of our community, you automatically get access to the CRM, which gives you the ability to set appointments and make notes and send text messages and emails all in one central location. So utilizing a CRM, setting up appointments, also becomes a very powerful ingredient in becoming an expert at time blocking. So that's tip number 3. Tip number 4 is focus on continuing education. So as you know, the mortgage industry is always changing. The economy is doing really, really bad, and there's less mortgage applications out there. Lenders tighten up because they want really strong paper, right? Or the rates become a little bit higher. And but then there's all these other exotic products, as I like to call them, that come out, like the non-QM products, for example. And it's important you know these, right? So before, when we were talking about spending 80% of your time prospecting and selling, the other 20% of your time is admin and learning, right? And so the admin part is processing and that sort of stuff, but learning becomes really important. Like, you need to know what products are out there, so when someone comes to you and says, hey, this is my situation, you know what product to put them in and you know the guidelines, right? Or learning how to be efficient with your CRM, or improving the skill of sales, or improving the skill of patience, right? Mortgage professionals, we're professional salespeople, right? I'm a 23-year mortgage guy. And I'm very clear, one of the most powerful skills to have is the skill of sales, and the skill, or two very important skills, the skill of sales and the skill of patience. Now, you can be a great salesperson because you're persuasive, or you have the ability to convince people, but Sales 101 is neither one of those. Sales 101 is building a relationship and earning trust and building loyalty, right? Because you might not get them now, but 3 or 4 months from now, when they're in a better position, they'll come back to you. So even though I've been in sales since I was 18, 19 years old, and I'll be 50, I still understand the importance of sharpening my tools of sales skills. And then I have a spiritual practice where I journal and I meditate and I listen to spiritual teachers, which also remind me about the importance of patience. And especially if you're doing internet leads, for example, listen, if you're getting a referral from a real estate professional, they're ready to go, you pre-approve them, they go shopping, fine. But in this lending environment, it's important that one of the pillars of your marketing is getting leads off of the internet, which is where Boom Digital Marketing comes in. That's one of our skill sets, where we get business from the internet for you to set up appointments and applications. And you need to know how to build that relationship and how to be patient and nurture that lead, knowing that the lead you get today might not be a mortgage that closes for another 4 or 5 months for a variety of reasons. So focusing on continuing education, knowing that products are always changing. You've got certain skill sets that you need to constantly be working on and refining, which include sales and patience, and just things that you want to learn that are just going to enhance your knowledge and wisdom in being the resource for people to reach out to when they think of mortgage. So focusing on continuing education, that's tip number 4. And then tip number 5, which is so important, is setting boundaries and avoiding distractions. And what I mean by that is to have a cutoff time actually lends credibility, in my perspective, in my experience. So for example, at 4:40, 4:55 every day, I shut everything down. My phone goes on airplane mode. I close my laptop so I'm not getting any more emails, phone calls, text messages. And that 5 minutes, I'm straightening up my desk and I'm getting ready to go join my family for dinner, and no one is calling me because I'm completely focused on being present with my family. Or on the reverse side, let's talk about the first 90 minutes of your day, or when you're prospecting, the 6 hours, hopefully the 5 or 6 hours of your day you're prospecting. It's, if you're prospecting, that means I'm not looking at an email. I'm not looking at text messages. Any phone calls that come in, I'm sending them to voicemail because I'm laser focused. And what we typically do as mortgage professionals, or any professionals, most of us do this, and this is just a normal thing in society now, which is a detriment. It gets you closer to failure. And failure is fine, right? It helps us in so many ways. So I welcome failure. But when we're in control of something and then we fail as a result because we're not disciplined, then at what point do you shift that, right? And so one of the ways to be efficient is to avoid distraction and make sure that, and here's a way to do it, by the way, is you have an automatic email reply, an automatic text reply, or your voicemail. So my voicemail a lot of times will say something like this: hey, today is Wednesday. I will be available returning phone calls, email, and text messages between 11:30 and 12:30, as well as 4 p.m. to 4:55 p.m. For a faster response, please send a text message. So that's an auto text, an auto email, and a voicemail. So whoever tries to get in touch with me, they know that I'm going to get back with them, but it also, I'm setting a boundary and I'm not allowing myself to get distracted, so I can stay focused on what's going to move the needle, the next part of my evolution in my career. Maybe the next part of your evolution is going from 1 unit to 3 units, or 3 units to 6 units, or 6 units to 12 units, or building a team and recruiting more loan officers, or being creative, and all the things that are important in growing a business. So you can stay a hustler, which is to just constantly do originations yourself and constantly getting distracted and you're hustling every day. Or you can set boundaries and avoid distractions with the intention of building something sustainable. So just to recap, the top 5 tips for time blocking: create a daily and weekly schedule. I do that either on Friday, Sunday, sometimes on Monday mornings. And then I'm reviewing my daily schedule every day before I get started. I kind of have a meeting with myself. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, prioritize lead generation and follow up. Make sure you are on the phone talking to people. Here at Boom Digital, we've got this amazing CRM that does texting and emailing and all bunch of tons of automation, which is great when you are focusing on something else. But there is something to be said about calling someone, then picking up the phone, and then they hear your voice. Or, I know nowadays texting is a big thing, and texting is fine, right? If they're responding to you, you're communicating, and that's what they want, that's fine. But it's important you prioritize lead generation and follow-up. The third tip is utilize your CRM and productivity tools. Make sure you do your best to be an expert on how to utilize a CRM. We have one here at Boom Digital. We have trainings on it, the whole thing. Productivity tools, which is part of that, is utilizing a calendar, blocking off time in your calendar. So when you look at your calendar, whether you're writing it, because I'm old school. I literally, not only do I put it in the digital, my digital productivity tool, which is my Google Calendar, so I can do things like this, record videos and things like that, but I'm also writing it down every day and constantly updating it so I see it at a snapshot. So what is your productivity tool? Number 4, focusing on continuing education, putting time aside to learn, so important to have a sustainable practice. And then the 5th tip is set boundaries and avoid distractions. That takes a lot of discipline, and it's important to understand the difference between being reactive and proactive. And setting boundaries and avoiding distractions is being proactive. And reactive, you're setting yourself up to constantly be chasing deals. And we don't want to chase deals. We want to have an efficient business that's predictable and sustainable. So with that being said, I hope this video on productivity and time blocking has brought you lots of value. Continue to watch our videos as we put them up there. Until next time, this is Jay Robbins.